All right. I just hit the button. We are live, and let's see who else is joining us. Scuttlebutter SS. Shannon, how's it going? Say hello to Shannon, everyone.
What's up, Shannon?
Hello, Shannon.
Hope you're doing good today.
Let's see here.
Everyone's probably busy rewatching The Mandalorian for the 10th time.
Yeah, I just watched it with my son a couple minutes ago.
I watched it 4 times so far.
Nice.
Dude, how good was the show? Oh my gosh.
All I can say is I'm glad for this first week that we get a second episode only 3 days later, because it's going to be tough when we get to a week at a time. But
I actually prefer that. I appreciate what Netflix does, allowing us to binge on our leisure. But I think for the fan experience and for things like this, for just discussing episode by episode, doing it weekly is so much better for the collective community to get together and chat about it.
Right. And I mean, we live in such a binge-ready society. It's actually a good thing to have that forced stop, because, I mean, even in this first episode, I watched it a couple times. I'm like, I don't think I'm missing anything major. And then someone had put out the tweet today about Dr. Pershing having that Kamino and Cloner logo on his shoulder. And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's things like this that make me love Star Wars fans so much, because, like, who does that?
Right.
Like, freeze frame and then take a still shot and then recognize what it is from a movie from 20 years ago.
Exactly. Well, and you got to love the Life Day reference.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah, we'll talk about that fish guy in a second. The fish guy. All right. Well, what did I do here?
You moved your camera.
I sure did.
Are we live right now?
We are live. No, we're live. Yeah.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Right. I think that was pretty well established in the blurb that Ro put out earlier. It's going to be spoilers.
Yeah. So, Shannon, did you get a chance to see The Mandalorian? That's funny. Yeah, we're funny, right? We're entertaining. We're entertaining you, Shannon. Thank you very much.
I should probably flip over to live comments, eh?
Yeah. Thank you, Shannon. Yes. It's too funny. So, we are here, the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. This is, dudes, this could be like the new, I won't say it. This is the Jedi Council right here.
That's right.
Boom.
Boom. There you go. I don't
know
about the Jedi Council.
Right.
We're very imperial over here on the Scarif Scuttlebutt. So
yeah, I can respect that.
I don't think Brad will be too fondly about that idea.
Right.
How was everybody tonight?
Good. Ready to go. Ready to talk about this freaking amazing show.
Yes.
Absolutely excellent. Yeah, it's going to be nice to get some of this stuff out.
So, first of all, again, I want to warn everybody, this is going to be spoilerific. You know, we're not going to spoil everything. I guess we are, but
heavily.
We really, really want to talk about this this show, Mandalorian Chapter 1. Welcome to the Good, the Bad, the Mando. Scarif Scuttlebutt review of The Mandalorian Chapter 1. It was really great. I just finished watching it again with my son a third time. This time, the way it's supposed to be on the big screen. I had a problem with the app yesterday. It just froze and froze and froze, and it was fine on my phone. I'm getting a lot of flack from my friends too, watching The Mandalorian on 3.5-inch screen.
Yeah,
that was my first experience. My son woke up. He's like 2.5, almost 3. So he woke up in the middle of the night crying, and I went into his bedroom to go put him back down to sleep. And I was like, I'm going to check Disney Plus right now and see if it opened up early. And sure enough, like 11:15 the day before it's supposed to air, I'm like downloading The Mandalorian. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, just a couple of people were telling me too that they did it right before. So kudos to you.
Your wife's going to wonder why you keep volunteering to get up with the baby.
Dude, it's not even a joke. Like I'm like, yeah, I'll go in there and I'll be on my phone watching stuff.
Right.
He goes to sleep for me.
Yeah.
It was easy.
Yeah. So let's wait a couple minutes, get some more people on there, and actually, let's see here. I could share this with peoples. Hopefully.
Oh, yeah. Social media.
Talk amongst yourselves. I hope everyone is enjoying this evening. We are live, as you can tell.
We got to get the appropriate watch band on for this.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Very good. Very good.
Putting on jewelry is a complicated profession.
You love that line, don't you?
I do. Yeah. That's my new catchphrase.
You've been putting it on everything.
Yeah. I was telling Alex, like, everything, like, what did I say? I told my news buddies, news gathering is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
You're pretty good at that voice, too.
See, I've got a good friend of mine who is the entertainment writer for the Grand Rapids Press, and he is widely known as the guy that got a hug from Werner Herzog. So, yeah, his claim to fame.
Excellent.
How cool. Did you guys get a chance to read that that article about how he's never seen Star Wars before?
No?
I just saw the headline. I didn't read the actual article. What does it say?
I can't say it verbatim, but I just thought it was funny. I was like listening or reading him talking about it, and I'm like, he's such an old school guy. Like I read, Greek mythology and old books, Shakespeare and things like that. Like I don't really watch TV, I don't really watch movies. But when Jon Favreau, I've never seen any of his movies either, but he came to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of this project, and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it, let's go. And I'm like, how amazing is it? And how jealous are we all? They're like, we love Star Wars. We would be in it. Like, no, you don't have to pay us. Just let us go.
Well,
it's like Bill Burr.
Dominic. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's like Bill Burr. He's not a big fan, and they asked him to be in it, or he's like, yeah, sure, I'll be in it. Whatever. What is this?
Talking to Dominic, when he went in to get fitted the first time, and he said there were a couple other actors in there, and they weren't really Star Wars fans. I'm like, there's people out there that aren't Star Wars fans. What's going on?
Yeah.
How are they getting these roles?
Awesome. We got Mr. Rez in the chat. How you doing, man? Thank you for joining us tonight. We are talking The Mandalorian. Again, just for you guys, if you joined us, if you're listening or watching on the social media, we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian. We've got a couple of things that we need to put out there. This is going to be a spoiler show. So if you haven't seen The Mandalorian, what are you doing here? Go download the app, go watch it, come back in 39 minutes, and we'll probably still be here. Who knows? But yeah, for sure. Guys, first impressions. Alex, what did you think?
First impressions, it was a love letter to the original trilogy, just like Jon Favreau said it was going to be, and that was his goal. There's nothing really not to like. I don't have any major complaints about this show. The first episode was really fast. It was like 37 minutes or something. I was expecting something a little bit more, but 30. That's all right. That's cool. They went for it. They didn't hold back. They weren't like, we got to over-explain things for people and do a lot of explanational dialogue so that we can catch everybody up on what's going on. They're like, no. We know who's watching this show. You guys are all caught up. We're good to go. And they just went for it. And that's usually, like in a normal TV show, I wouldn't really like that. But because it is Star Wars and it is such a huge accomplishment to have it on a live TV show, they were just like, we're good. We know who our audience is. Let's just go. Don't worry about explaining anything, and let's have some fun. And boy, did we have fun, man! There were so many cool callbacks and amazing scenes, and Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian himself, like aces. Everything was perfect. The only thing I was a little underwhelmed with the music. I didn't attach myself with the theme for the Mandalorian. I felt like it wasn't amped up enough. I was yearning for that John Williams-esque feel,
Yeah, and I think maybe that was deliberate. Obviously this is going to be kind of a smaller project, a smaller, I guess, look into the Star Wars universe. This is a story of this character that is, vastly separated from the good versus evil epic storyline that we had in the original trilogy and the rest of the films. So maybe that was by design. I think I also was kind of waiting for some sort of crawl or maybe even what they did for Solo, where they had maybe a paragraph that kind of explained like what was going on. But yeah, I would agree. The music was not up there, but I think it was done kind of to illustrate a point. Like this is a smaller story, and then maybe later on, as the plot thickens, as they say, we might get a little bit more grandiose, musical themes, because obviously, Star Wars is known for that. Rob?
Yeah, I mean, it was everything I was hoping it was going to be. I mean, it definitely had that gritty, slightly darker feel to it that was very similar to what we got in Rogue One. Certainly, what was it, Ludwig Göransson?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that the music he did in Black Panther was great. I know that what they're going for is kind of more the spaghetti Western style. And kind of harkening back to that, but I totally agree. I mean, we're as an entire generation or multiple generations of people that grew up on Star Wars, we just have John Williams is just programmed into our DNA. So just see Star Wars and have those visuals and not get that audio to go with it is a little bit disconnect. But the other thing that I thought that would have been nice is that kind of as they introduced each planet, we don't even get a planet name. For most of these locations he's going to. So that's really the only thing that I would have asked for, I guess, in this particular show. But, a lot of great new characters. I thought IG-11 was awesome. And we certainly got all the action we could have wanted out of a Star Wars film.
IG-88 stole the show, or IG-11 stole the show. He was, when I first bought the action figure as a kid, he's very stiff. And I'm like, I didn't really... I was trying to figure out like how he would move if he were like a real character. Obviously, he didn't do a lot. They really did a great job. Yeah, they really did a really great job with the swiveling and the turning, and there's one shot really cool where he swivels 360 and he shoots somebody from behind, but his head is like still looking at the camera, and like, is really great. That was really great.
Just the reticulation of his arms, especially. And like you said, I mean, his hips swiveling around, but the fact that, his arm would just kind of do a 180 on him and he was shooting behind him and his head swiveling around. There was just so many axes of movement going on there. It was awesome. Yeah. And I mean, it's been 40 years. I've been wondering what that looked like.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely one of the best moments of that show or this episode. It was so cool to see that whole like OK Corral shootout scene was done expertly. I can't talk. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. IG-11 stole the scenes that he was in for sure. Like as cool as the Mando is, when you see IG-11 walking just the way we had imagined it when we were kids, like it's so cool to see it on screen.
Definitely.
Well, I'm going to go with initiating self-destruct anytime I'm in a stressful situation from now on. So.
I want to say a quick shout out to Charlie Skywalker. He is one of our patron supporters. Hello, Charlie. How you doing? Welcome. Matt Vader. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man? Welcome to the live show. Who else is there? As we start getting some people, a special shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Daft Prawn. I know they're going through some stuff. Just wanted to, send some healing energy towards them, and Godspeed and God healing there. But what else? Yeah, I wanted to go back a little bit. What'd you guys think of that opening thing? That again, there was not a lot of like pomp and circumstance at the beginning. There it was that graphic with all the characters, kind of like 3D heads and the light.
Yeah, the new Lucasfilm intro, kind of like what they've done with the Avengers in the past.
Yeah,
the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
And I honestly didn't even notice. I'm gonna have to go back and look.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can you hear the fob, the tracker fob, and you see the light going, and then obviously the Lucasfilm logo was great. It's always wonderful to see that. But so one of my biggest fears, and I got a little pushback from somebody on another thread. One of my biggest fears when thinking Star Wars TV, Star Wars on the small screen, is I'm hoping that it, I guess I was hoping that it would not look like Star Trek: The Next Generation,
Right.
if you know what I mean.
Right.
And I know the budgets are vastly different back in the 80s when, or no, 90s when Next Generation came out. I mean, those were $1 million per episode, and this is 10 million per episode for the Mandalorian. So obviously the difference is there. But that fish guy at the beginning, I was a little worried. What do you guys think of the costumes and everything that went forward after that? Thoughts? Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I would say.
Do I talk first? You talk first?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little hard to understand with the apparatus, right? So, no, I mean, it wasn't even the costume for the blue fish man or whatever you want to call him. I know he has a name, and I just keep thinking Mythosaur because it's so close to that. But it wasn't even the costume. It was just the fact that when he talked, it was like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Okay.
There was nothing alien about the way he spoke. So that threw me a little bit at the beginning. And then Brian Posen, showing up as the taxi driver was kind of a funny little nod. But after we got past that, I thought everything had kind of the level of mystique or mysterious nature that it would be expected to have for a Star Wars. Something set in the Star Wars universe, but that was the only spot early on in the show that I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm buying that this guy's a quote unquote alien.
That's a good point. I didn't really notice that until you just said it, but that is true. He just kind of like he was talking normal English, where typically when you'd see somebody of a different species, you would have some kind of an accent or because he's a fish guy, it would be kind of similar to almost like an Akbar,
right?
Where he'd have that kind of speech impediment as far as when it comes to talking basic. But yeah, that is a good point, Rob. I didn't really notice it. I didn't take anything away from me personally because I was focused on everybody else in the bar. I was looking at all the cool, they had the Greedo type species. You had all the other aliens in there. And then you had the guy that was picking the fight who was speaking a different language. I thought it was all really immersive. It all really felt like it took place right in Mos Eisley to me. Mm-hmm. But now, thanks, you ruined it because of this guy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think they were. It really sounded Huttese, what they were speaking. The language in the bar at the beginning, and I really enjoyed. But yeah, I was a little like, oh, what's going on? What are they doing? It would have been nice if he kind of like spoke like, like he was fish out of water.
Right. Yeah, you would expect a little bit of gargling of some sort. Yeah, it was a little bit of a disconnect between the way his character looked and the way he was talking.
Yeah, so I've got a comment up on the screen. Aaron Burke says there was a tad cleansed aspect in only some parts, and the comic relief wasn't necessary. What do you guys say to that?
It would depend on which comic relief, because I thought humor was dealt with really well in the show, where it wasn't a forced joke. It was more of it was just a situational humor because of us, especially with IG-11 and the Mando. There was no jokes there. It was just them two going back and forth is what gave us the humor. Very similar to Han Solo and C-3PO. I kind of got that vibe from that type of humor. I didn't notice any overt joking, like Marvel-esque, like, oh, let's make a funny quip, except for the blue guy, which, to their credit, I mean, I was a little worried, like you guys were. I'm watching this. I'm like, I hope he's not going to be like the quirky sidekick or something. But they toss him in the carbonite right away, and he's gone. And then it's a straight arrow after that. So as far as the humor goes, I think, there's some – you could – criticize the beginning of it as being a little weird, but I think after it kind of finds its feet and you're following the Mando into his next mission, it kind of just takes off from there. And I think they handled it really well.
I agree. Did you guys, somebody had pointed out that when he was looking through the carbonite, the two figures there, one of them was George Lucas, the other one was Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I can see the argument for that.
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities. I hadn't noticed it the first time through, but kind of on further review, I could see where you could go with that. I don't know how I feel about throwing the Maker and Carbonite, but
right, yeah.
I thought it was a great catch, and I think it was Matt Vader is the one who showed me.
Oh, nice.
And he was like, "Yeah, check it out. Look at him." I watched it in slow motion. I'm like, "Holy cow! I think it might actually be." Because I mean, they're not obviously they're encased in carbonate, so you can't get a really great profile of what they look like. But there was a woman with long hair, and then the very next person was a larger guy with a beard, and I'm like, yeah, that could totally be a little Easter egg for people, like, oh, let's put George and Kathleen in Carbonite and the Bounty Hunter. I think that was really cool. I think it was a really cool thing for them to do. Just, it's funny. I don't know. I found it kind of cool.
Yeah, especially since it seems like they were on the set during the filming of that first episode, obviously, and a little throwback to their set visit, I guess. Right. But that's really funny. What about favorite moments? One of the things that Alex, you had mentioned that it was only 39 minutes, and I thought it would be a little longer. And I'm not sure if going forward each episode is going to be a different time length. And obviously, you don't have to worry about networks. You don't have to worry about commercial breaks. You don't have to worry about fitting that program into a certain time slot. But I did think it was a little on the short side. Perhaps the next episode is 45 minutes. Maybe one is going to be 110. If they continue to do Star Wars this way, I mean, it could be 2 hours. This is really, really great.
Yeah, for sure. For a premiere, like a big premiere that we've been waiting for a long time, what we're used to getting the extra long episodes, like Game of Thrones. Always Their premieres were always an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. And they held back a little bit on this, and it didn't bother me because the story was very straightforward and to the point, and it set up so much cool lore. Like in those 35 minutes or so, how much did they set up? They set up the Mandalorian's backstory with him being a young child, with the attack of the clone, not the clone army, the droid army. So that kind of fed into his reasoning why he denied the ride from the droids. Like, I don't do droids, get that thing out of here. And that's kind of a cool thing if you think about, like, maybe that's the same reason why the guy at the bar in Mos Eisley said the same thing about C-3PO and R2-D2. Like, we don't serve their kind here. Maybe he was involved in the Clone Wars somehow. It kind of brings up those cool little things for fans of the movie to go looking back and say, oh, maybe this is kind of connected to that somehow or something like that. And then you of course you have the he's walking down to the blacksmith, the Mandalorian blacksmith. How cool was that scene?
Oh,
we get to watch her craft a Mandalorian piece of armor. There's a whole ton of lore and backstory that we can explore there. So just in this short episode, I think they handled it really well in making sure that everybody had a very pointed thing to do. There was no messing around. There was no fluff. It was just like, we're here to do a job. Let's go do it.
Yeah, I think we probably, to kind of refresh our memory with the Mandalorian lore, we probably need Trevor Beast 454 on this one, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But so Aaron has got another comment. He's talking about the monkey lizard barbecue sort of nailed home that this wasn't just a cute little story, that it has some meat to it. Ha ha ha. Possibly lemon pepper rubbed. But thank you, Aaron.
Try to get him into canon as Delicious Crumb, Salacious T. Crumb's brother. So I'm all for that.
Hey, if Turbis can be a hashtag, let's do it, guys.
I'm not gonna lie, that was a jaw-dropping moment for me when I saw the Salacious Crumb, or I'm assuming it's probably not actually that character, but I'm just gonna call him that.
Right.
Salacious Crumb was standing there looking at the other person on the spit, just turning and cooking, and I'm like, oh my God, they went there. That's amazing. And the same thing with, I think we were all speculating with that trailer that dropped during Celebration. Mm-hmm. Like, did they just cut that guy in half with the door? I'm like, no, they're not going to do that. He's just stuck or something, right? Nope. No, they just like
his torso dropped. And my son is 15. He looks at it, he goes, oh, that was cool. And then he goes, but it's Disney, so they're not going to show it.
I think the sound and just knowing what happened, that's enough for me. I don't expect blood. I don't expect blood and gore.
You know what I loved is when the Mandalorian was walking through the market, there's so much texture in those shots. There's the foreground, all the stuff that's happening in the foreground. There's like droids in the background, just like walking past. I love that. Again, getting back to George Lucas's lived-in galaxy. I mean, that's what it's all about, and that's what I love seeing with the Mandalorian and the settings. Rob, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it reminded me a lot of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Actually, that's the same type of feel you get when you go there. So, to that, in that respect, they've done that very well. But everything that I'd heard from folks that have been on the set was just how amazing the sets were and how true to Star Wars they were. And again, it goes back to the thing that worked so well in the original trilogy was that nothing was clean and pristine. It was always dirty and gritty and lived in. And I think they really brought that back with the way they've done episode 1 for sure.
Yeah.
I do wish it was longer, but I'm kind of wondering if they broke it up a little bit due to the fact that they're churning out 2 episodes in week 1.
Could be. And, I don't want to start any rumors, but maybe that was all that Dave Filoni can handle. Just right off the bat, it's his first live action directing. No, I don't know.
That was a low blow.
That goes right up there with the person that I was talking to that referred to Gina Carano's character as arm candy. So,
what?
I'm asking for it with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think she's just there for fluff. I said, you have any idea who you're talking about?
Yeah,
right.
That's not
you right now.
Plus, I mean, we haven't seen her in the show yet, so how does he even know?
Right.
That's getting back to Alex. Somebody had posted. No, it was you that responded. How are you hating on a show that you haven't even seen?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a weird thing that people do, and I think right now. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but with the Star Wars fandom being so divided and so kind of like at each other's throats all the time, I think at this point people are looking for a reason to be upset. I saw some people complaining that the blurgs were all female. I was like, who cares?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
dude, this is what we're arguing about.
It's like, is this what it's come to? I mean, I guess it's a good thing. They're not arguing about anything legitimate. It's just some nonsense. So like, I guess take it for what it is. At least they don't have a legitimate concern. Like, I think a lot of the criticisms about the sequels are legitimate. So at least we're not there. We're complaining about blurgs being female. Like, whatever, who cares?
Charlie Skywalker's got we're talking about the same droids that were working in Jabba's palace. You also had the when he knocked on the door, the droid that came out to say hello. It's the universe. No, what is it? The ring droid.
That was pretty good.
I was going to say, nicely done.
So those are the kind of cool, like, familiar things that are part of this universe, and I think that's pretty cool. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's full of fan service," but I mean, how can you not have fan service? I mean, this is part of the galaxy that we're familiar with. You're going to see it, so.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, come again, just complaining about stuff just to complain. So whatever.
Yeah. I mean, fan service, even. I don't know. I don't know of any bad fan service. Fan service can be really good sometimes, especially when it's melded into the universe that we're watching.
Yeah, of course. And speaking of the universe, so there was a little bit of a discussion regarding what they meant when they were talking about the purge. So as I understood it, whenever the word purge was seen, you would always see it with Jedi. So were they talking about the Jedi purge or like a Mandalorian massacre? I feel like, obviously this is set after Return of the Jedi. Everybody is dead. The Jedi have been basically wiped out. I think they were talking about the Jedi purge.
I got the impression they were talking more about a purge of Mandalore that was that took place with the Empire kind of at the helm. I would imagine once Palpatine had successfully removed the Jedi from being an issue with his rule, I would think that the Mandalorians, with their kind of history as being Jedi killers, would be a risk to him as well. So that was my takeaway from that. It's nothing that they have in canon currently, at least that I've seen, but
okay.
I think that's one of the things that they're going to kind of deal with via flashbacks in this particular show.
And there's one thing that I didn't see in this. You know, we were treated to those separatist droids in the trailers for The Mandalorian. I didn't see as many in his flashback scenes. So obviously they're saving that for later flashbacks, I'm assuming. But very similar, I thought it was the Mandalorian. What do you call it? The Siege on Mandalore, or when in the Clone Wars cartoon, when Mandalore was invaded by the Separatists, because we did see those droids, and we saw that the droid ship that was overhead, that was the same type of droid ship that killed Saw Gerrera's sister in that episode. So yeah, I'm figuring that they're saving that for additional flashbacks or additional, plot lines going forward.
He's got a lot more armor to get made, so I assume they're going to deal with the flashbacks via that vehicle like they did in episode 1, that we're going to have plenty of chance to see it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're gonna kind of piece it together for us as we go. We'll probably get one episode maybe halfway through the season where it really focuses on his backstory, and it'll kind of feed into the overall story that we're watching unfold, and it'll be like the reason why I'm assuming he's going to help some people, because if you look in one of the trailers, they're training like farmers or something to fight. Right. Gina Carell's, is her name? What's her last name? Carano. Gina Carano's character is standing there kind of like showing them how to fight and how to organize and stuff like that. So I think we're going to get like a Magnificent Seven type storyline possibly. And I think it's going to, his backstory during the Clone Wars, losing his family to the droids, is going to kind of feed into that going forward. So I'm really looking forward to what they're doing. And I think the story that they have in store for us is going to be a ton of fun to watch. So I'm all for it. Whatever they have ready to go, let's go for it.
And especially because we got Filoni and Favreau at the helm, two guys that really understand Star Wars, really understand the lore. And I mean, come on, Dave Filoni.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. If anybody has Star Wars in their hands, these two guys are top of my list for sure.
Yes, please.
Definitely. So let's get into a little bit of a spoiler territory. I think before the series came out, I kind of had an inkling that the Mandalorian was going to be protecting a child. Mm-hmm. It looks like that might be the case going forward. I had no idea that the child was going to be who it's going to turn out to be. But very fascinating story. And did you guys expect that at the end there?
No, not even a little. No. I was like waiting. I'm like, okay, so it's a kid. All right, he's got to transport a child. That didn't strike me. But then when they pan the camera down and the little Yoda pulls the blanket down over his face, I'm like, that's a baby Yoda.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Like, we've never seen one of those before. And then for him to say that he's like 50 years old or something, like, this is all new information for Star Wars fans. Like, oh, we never knew that's exactly how long it took for them to age. We always thought that Yoda just kind of grew up, but he just lived a really long time. No, it takes them a long time to get to that age.
Right. Well, and it's the greatest thing that, that has been one of the areas of the Star Wars universe that, Lucas basically had said was off limits for any of the expanded universe type stuff. And certainly within the new canon, since Disney's taken over, they haven't addressed it either. We've only seen Yoda and Yaddle. So, I mean, the question is, was there a little bit of hanky-panky going on in the Jedi High Council? I don't know. I definitely think that between the fact that you've got Dr. Pershing, who had that patch on his shoulder linking him back to the Kaminoan cloners, and the fact that you've got this, well, I would not call it a coincidence that this young member of Yoda's species is the exact same age as Anakin would have been had he survived. They were both born in the same year. So, back when Palpatine was kind of sowing his original seeds, if you go do the math, he would have been, Anakin would have been 40, he would have been 41 at the time of the Battle of Yavin, 50 as of the time of the Mandalorian. So there's some links that indicate that there may be a deeper story to all of this.
Oh, definitely.
We shall see. Not to mention, I mean, you have to assume that the only two members of that species you've seen were both masters on the Jedi High Council. So, based on what we know, we'd assume that this one is strong with the Force as well.
You just blew my mind,
Rob. I'm working on that.
Anakin and this young baby are the same age. Wow, that's crazy.
And I have to give all the credit to my brother. He actually texted me last night, and I'm like, "Get out of here!" And went out and did the math, and I was like, "Oh my God, where'd you find that?"
So, do you think someone is cloning Force sensitive beings for some reason?
Well, we know that was part of the expanded universe back in the original Thrawn trilogy, so it's certainly not without some sort of link back to old Star Wars stories or legends. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go that route. It would seem like a pretty big leap to not only end up with another member of Yoda's species, but to potentially have it be possibly linked to him, right?
Yeah. So, going forward, how does that impact Star Wars, especially in the sequel trilogies? There were a lot of people, obviously, that we don't know who Rey is. We don't know who her parents are or whatever. Rian Johnson did the whole, snapping the fingers and you expect to see a mother and a father, but we just saw her in the reflection. So obviously a lot of people were saying that maybe Rey is a clone, but a clone of who? She's definitely Force sensitive. So I'm wondering if the math works out there too. If Rey is a clone, and is she a clone of someone that we already know? Initially, also, I remember reading a rumor that Rey was kind of a reincarnation or a clone of Anakin. And depending on these cloners, I mean, that's a pretty wild accusation, I guess. Thoughts?
A clone Yoda. I mean, that's so far off from what I thought this show was going to be about. Like it that anchors it into the Skywalker saga, because it's a character that we've known and loved for 40 plus years. That's, been one of the most iconic characters in movie history, in Star Wars history. And now we possibly have a link to him through this young clone. And moving into the sequel trilogy, this is, 15, 20 years before the sequel trilogy starts or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And so there's, how much is he going to age in that time? He's obviously not going to be very old, but he'll probably be a young toddler by that time, 15 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's, what kind of implications is that going to have, like you said, for the sequel trilogy and for Star Wars in general? Like, this opens up a whole can of worms, man.
Right.
It does. One of the things that bothered me, real fast, I'll mention this, is the people, the age of people. Because obviously on Earth, we age, our years is because of the revolvement of the Earth around the sun and, 365 days. But that's got to be different on other planets and other galaxies, especially in Star Wars. And I know that, we have to kind of make a frame of reference to that. But it always bothered me that it's like, well, Anakin's like 30. Well, he could be like 90. Who knows?
Right.
Well, there's like an established like basic preset for everybody to follow, right? Because obviously it's got to be something that they would have made up once they started going planetary and doing deals with other planets on other timelines. Like, everybody would have to agree, like, okay, this is the standard day. It's however many hours, probably based off of Coruscant. Kind of just that's the center hub for everybody else. So that's kind of just the timeline that everybody goes off of.
Like Greenwich Greenwich mid time or mean time, whatever they call that.
We got Aaron Burke with a great question here. I mean, is Deadpool going to be in The Mandalorian?
Why not?
Again, maybe that was him. Maybe he was dressed up like a Quarren. We're going to see his lower torso and upper torso rejoin in episode 2.
That would be, weird things have happened.
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, you talk about the fact that this really does open the door to a lot of things, and it could definitely have implications into the sequel trilogy and, complicate what they've got going on. But I haven't really seen them steer clear of that with the new content that they've been creating. So I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how season 1 pans out. I love the fact that they're already filming season 2.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with my buddy here at the office, and we were talking about how, I guess they had to really decide, are they making The Mandalorian for general audiences, general Star Wars audiences that are not going to out of the references that someone like Dave Filoni is going to inject into a Star Wars, or are they really going to say, you know what, F it, let's go all the way. We've got all this information, all this lore. Let's just, throw everything at it, and just really count on the story to really tell this tale. I have obviously, episode 1 is out, but I have a feeling that the casual fans obviously are going to have to do a little homework. I think really, like Alex, like you said in the opening, that this is really a love letter to the hardcore original Star Wars fans, or I don't want to say original Star Wars fans, but really the fans that have really invested time and resources into really getting into the lore of Star Wars. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with myself.
Rob, what do you think?
I think that what they've done both with the films and a lot of the shows that they're putting out there is you can still enjoy it even if you're a casual fan. But I think that the more you know about what's going on in the Star Wars universe, the deeper enjoyment you can get out of it, which is, that was the reason I started the podcast, was just to kind of approach it from a casual fan standpoint and try to start layering in some of the additional information for people who maybe don't have the time to watch the Clone Wars or Rebels or whatever the case may be, or get into some of these ancillary characters that aren't really addressed head on in a lot of the films. And then you can get a little bit more enjoyment out of even rewatching some of the stuff. And so, I definitely think that there are some awesome Easter eggs in these episodes if you're a true deep hardcore Star Wars fan, but I don't really see anything in the episode so far, at least the one episode that's been out, that would stop someone who's just seen the films from going in there and enjoying it. We've seen the Boba Fett, at least, so they've seen a Mandalorian, they've seen Yoda, they've seen the I'm blanking on the pigmen, the Ugnaughts. Oh my god, yeah.
Oh, how perfect was Nick Nolte's voice for an Ugnaught?
Yes.
My gosh, it fits so well. I have spoken.
Really good.
And to that effect, I really appreciated what they did with Pedro Pascal's role in this particular episode, because he's not talking all the time, and that's exactly how he should be. It's gotten to the point where the sequel trilogy, where they're beating us over the head with hope, and we get that Star Wars is about hope. The first episode we ever watched was A New Hope, but it used to be
for me it was Star Wars.
No, exactly, but most people are familiar with it as A New Hope. So
you snob.
Right, exactly. I was there too, right? So, but it's to the point now where it's like, oh, we don't trust that the fans are going to get that this is about hope, so we're going to say hope every third sentence. And I think sometimes less is more, and certainly with a Mandalorian series, approaching it from the standpoint of someone who is a soft-spoken, if speaking at all, type character is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely pulling on that Clint Eastwood style, a man of few words. When he does speak, it's for a very pointed reason. It's like, I love the moment when he's talking with Carl Weathers' character, and he tries to pay him in Imperial. He's like,
right.
The Empire's gone. Like, what are you? I'm not accepting this.
They still spend. Yeah. And
he gave him Mon Calamari credits, which I thought was pretty cool, because they're like little jelly cubes.
Yeah. Oh, did you guys? Oh, in that first scene, was I like wish seeing? Did you guys see? Somebody had pointed it out too on Twitter. Constable Zuvio is in there. You see the back of his head. Very distinct hat.
Yeah, the mushroom dome.
Yeah, he turns around, and I would say, yeah, that's Constable Zuvio. Zuvio.
Hold on a second. I gotta look up what this guy looks like. Who is he again?
Constable Zuvio. Zuvio. He was an action figure. Yeah, he was an action figure that was created right before The Force Awakens. Everybody bought him, and he's nowhere in the movie.
Right.
He's been turned into a meme. But I saw him. I'll screenshot somebody. You can just find it on. Yeah, him. Yeah, that guy. You don't see the front of his face. He's the camera is showing the back of him when the Mandalorian walks into the bar.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch and see.
Yeah,
That's
I
something
love the conversation going on in chat here where we're talking about if this young member of Yoda species is 50 years old, then doesn't that mean they're incredibly slow learners? If they can't
I saw that too.
at that point? So, kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah, you might be right. Maybe as a teenager, he's like, what, 80? No, it would be even longer than that, wouldn't it? If he's 50 now and he's only a baby, it would be like 100 something, and he'd be a teenager just learning how to, going through like some weird puberty thing or something like that.
Yeah, that was the pre-bedtime conversation in my house last night. Was I don't understand. I mean, Yoda only lived to 900 years old, and he's an old man. You've got this baby that's supposedly 50. I mean, they don't seem like they're aging fast enough at that point. He's going to be what, 350 before he's a teenager?
Yeah,
that seems weird. Maybe the info is wrong. Maybe we'll find out that he's not really 50. Who knows?
Right. The terrible 200s.
The terrible 200s. Yeah.
Can you imagine the parents of that poor child? Like, for 50 years, you got to take care of a baby.
Oh my God.
I got two of my own, and I'm like, can you just get older, please?
You just get older. Can you walk on your own, please?
Yeah.
So, for you guys, did this feel like Star Wars for you?
I'll let Alex take that first. I'm hogging the microphone.
Did it feel like Star Wars? That's a weird question, because I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, this feels like the old school Star Wars," and I'm like, it looks like the old school Star Wars. Definitely, it has that aesthetic, like we talked about, with the used, lived-in, futuristic world. I don't know what it was that George did to make the magic of the original trilogy. It's nothing can touch it. He can't even remake it. He tried with the prequels, and he didn't bring that, for me at least, he didn't bring back that original trilogy feel. Everybody keeps trying to do it. JJ tried to do it with The Force Awakens. He got pretty close, but then I don't know. No, it didn't feel like Star Wars. It was Star Wars, and I accept it as such, and I think it's a solid addition to the lore and to the canon, and something that we can all enjoy and love. I have no gripes with it, but I don't know what it is about those original trilogy movies, but nothing compares to it. I don't know why. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my brain not being able to let go of that nostalgia from the original trilogy. But it's a damn good try. I'll give them that.
The prequel trilogy was a different era, so things were slightly different. I would argue. By the time the original trilogy rolled out, and obviously used universe and all that, Gareth Edwards really hit it on the nose as far as making it feel like Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's something about even when other filmmakers copy Star Wars, it's not really 100% there. One of the things that off topic real fast regarding feeling of Star Wars, when Star Wars came out in 1977, was it CBS that really wanted to kind of cash in on that genre, and they created Battlestar Galactica?
Right.
A lot of things in Battlestar Galactica, the TV show, before obviously budget cuts, they did feel a little bit like Star Wars. And obviously I think it's because a lot of the 3D not the 3D, the model makers and all the people at ILM, John Dykstra went over from ILM to do Battlestar Galactica. So they had that same aesthetic. They had that same methodology. And that's, we credit George Lucas obviously for creating the world, but these guys at ILM really are the ones that gave that aesthetic, that gave that look. McQuarrie, John Molo, the costume designers. These are the unsung heroes of Star Wars, and I hope a lot of our listeners really appreciate how hard it is to create that world out of nothing. So kudos to them. But I think Mandalorian was definitely on as far as does it feel Star Wars. I'm really excited to explore what this part of the universe looks like and feels like. because this is very unique territory for Star Wars. We're not dealing with, Jedi and Sith. We're not dealing with the Empire or Luke or Leia or Han. This is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. And to like you were talking about ILM and stuff, that it brought into mind, I think the closest part that really felt like old school Star Wars was when he was in his ship and he's flying around. That ship felt tangible, whether you were on the inside or the outside. It felt like a real ship that you would watch. And I think that is in part due to the way that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau actually did it the way George did it in the 70s, where they built a model and they had a motion capture camera fly past the model, and it gives us that feeling that the ship is in motion. It looks and feels just like old school Star Wars from A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and stuff. And I think that really kind of mimicking but updating the way that George did it back then is the best way to go as far as giving us that feel for Star Wars.
I will say though that it's super funny because you think about when they made these films in '77, and it was the Dykstra Flex mounted on this motion capture rig, and now it's a small, relatively handheld camera. So it goes to show you how much the technology's changed. But they certainly, watching the ship kind of coming into space there at the beginning of the film, that was a shot right out of OT Star Wars for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we talked to Dominic. My dog just came up and licked me in the ear. I was like,
It's a glurg.
Yeah. Right. He's going to bite my arm off. How cool was that scene? We'll talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to talk about, what was I saying?
Dominic
Pace.
Dominic Pace.
Technology.
Yes. With the technology that they use, he said while he was on set, they had behind Carl Weathers, they had like this wall of LED lights that would create the set behind him. And he's like, I was standing there looking at it, and it felt like it was a tangible item, like it was another room. And I'm like, how cool is that? Like, this is that type of technology that George would be interested in, trying to further and advance the way films are made. I think that strikes at the heart of Star Wars as well, is always pushing that envelope of what's next. How do we make movies even better? How do we make movies faster, easier, that look even better? And I think that I wish I was there to see that, because it almost seems unbelievable. Like, how do you take an LED screen, like a TV or something, and make it look like it's a real room? Like, I really appreciated that Dominic shared that with us, because that's such a cool thing.
I do blame Dominic, though. He ruined some of the continuity of the episode for me, because in that scene where the Mandalorian and Grief Karga are talking, I'm looking for Dominic in the background, and they had a shot of Carl Weathers, and I see Dominic in the background of that shot, and then they flip over to the Mandalorian, and I see Dominic in the background of that shot. So I'm like, my God, this guy's everywhere.
Good for him.
Right.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, totally.
So Gecko, so what you're saying is Gecko has teleportation abilities.
He does.
Yeah.
He's clearly got some teleportation talents.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, coming from a production background, I noticed a couple of little minor things. In the first scene, when the Mandalorian shows the bounty puck to Fishman, and he says, I can take you cold, or I can take you warm.
Right.
In the shot where he's you can see him face on. He takes his hand and goes by his gun, and you can see that he's going by his hand is by his gun.
Right.
And then they do the reverse shot that's slower, and you see the fish man, and his hand is nowhere near his gun. It's like just hanging down. And I'm like, oh, I'm done with Star Wars.
Well, that harkens back to like Rey goes to hand the lightsaber to Luke and takes a step back, and the next thing you know, she's 12 feet away. And Finn, when he goes up to the TIE fighter in Force Awakens, he takes a step back and he's 30 feet away. And so there's some continuity in just about everything they do lately.
Yeah. I mean, they're just Starbucks and Game of Thrones. So.
Right, exactly. Water bottles, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff is obviously, the filmmakers are constrained with time, and they need, more than their own pair of eyes. And that's where you get, your crew is really, a godsend to you when you're on these sets to try to make sure that continuity is up to par, and make sure that everything on screen is what needs to be on there. But let's get back to favorite moments. We talked about those lizard creatures. And again, a great throwback to the Ewok Adventure TV show.
Yeah.
The blurgs. I really like the inclusion of them. And I love that little, running sequence. It was almost like Rocky going up the stairs. You know, it was kind of really cool. What'd you guys think of that?
Well, I also love the fact that, you know, as the Mandalorian's looking through his scope and he sees the blurgs kind of in the distance there, and then he goes back to the scope and the blurg kind of comes out of nowhere. That was a total, you know, callback to Luke looking through the rifle and the Tuskens showing up. So, you know, there's so many little subtle nods back to the original trilogy, especially that, you know, you just can't help but it's clearly by design. And that's one of the great things about Jon Favreau.
Yeah, for sure. And Dave Filoni as well. I'm sure he's super knowledgeable about all that stuff. And I think when we're talking about favorite moments, I wanted to mention like a favorite. It's not really a moment, but it's just the idea of the Mandalorian himself. We see him as this unstoppable gunslinger when he first starts out. And, you know, it could be easy to fall into the trap of having a character that has no flaws. He's just good at everything he does. But we see early on with that same scene that you were just talking about, Rob, where he gets attacked by these blurs and he's kind of off his game. He gets surprised and he ends up needing help. He fails a couple times. And then again, when he goes and he tries to ride him, he fails a couple times before he finally gets on to the idea of how to do it. And then it's nice to have a hero that has some flaws that you can connect with, that you can watch grow. I think that's really important for the story and for us to connect with the character. So I really appreciated that they went through the trouble of doing that instead of having just like, oh, I'm just going to jump on the blurg. Oh, I'm just going to take out these guys at the bar. No problem. Oh, I'm going to go down here and take out this city full of bad guys. No problem. I got all this. Like, it showed him struggle with each thing that he tried to do.
He's not a merry Mando.
Exactly. Hey, new segment.
Rob, did you enjoy those scenes?
No. I haven't seen it yet. I just figured I'd come on here. You guys give me the lowdown.
You know what's funny though is, you know, back when they did the Ewok adventures, you know, that stop motion of those creatures was very apparent. You know, you had you know, a low budget TV movie that you know, was a Star Wars, but this had, again, it had a little bit of that stop motion feel to it. That's very familiar, especially if you can relate those creatures coming from the Ewok movies. I didn't mind it too much. I think it was really, you know, again, you know, and I think Andrew just mentioned it, that you know, these are love letters to the fans and to people that are really familiar with what came before. And I think that's great going forward if they kind of keep that philosophy and pay, you know, tribute to the story going forward.
Yeah, I loved it. I love those old Ewok movies are probably some of my favorite things that are somewhat tied to the Star Wars universe. We never really get that major connection in those movies, but I used to watch them when I was a kid and I loved them. And seeing these creatures in this show, I can't wait to talk to Yoshi about the CGI behind that, because my gosh, did those things look real? Like, I couldn't honestly tell if they were some kind of a puppeteer practical effect on set or if they're 100% CGI. I couldn't tell. I was watching it. I'm like, that looks amazing. You could see the wrinkles in the skin and the hair on the eyebrows. And a lot of the times I'm trying to learn a little bit more about CGI before I meet Yoshi, so I know what I'm talking about. A lot of the times the problem with CGI, where we realize and we see it on screen and we know that it's CGI, is because of the lighting. They don't exactly get the lighting right, whether it's on skin. Skin is a little bit transparent, has a lot of hair on it. So if you don't get all those details perfectly right, it comes off as looking fake. I think they nailed it for these blurgs, and I hope that I'm not completely misunderstanding what I'm seeing on screen and they're not like real things that they had on set. But my goodness, man, those things were great looking.
Are we sure that Yoshi's not a CGI creation? I mean,
we're not.
We've only seen pictures of him, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, we'll get to hang out with him November this weekend. Wow, it's this weekend. Yeah. But let's talk about new characters. Who do you think? Obviously, we didn't see Gina Carano's character. We didn't see some of the other bounty hunters. You know, we saw them in that scene. Carl Weathers' character was in that booth dishing out some Imperial credits. But who are you most excited to see that we know of, and who do you think is going to show up in subsequent episodes? Rob.
Oh man, you got to put me on the spot like that. As far as characters that got introduced in the first episode, clearly IG-11. I was really thinking IG-11 was going to stick around longer than the one episode, and I don't know. I mean, he's a droid, right? He could get repaired, he could come back, but the only characters, Giancarlo Esposito's character, who looks to be some sort of a Imperial pilot or Imperial officer of some sort that has kind of maybe one of the warlords that are running loose in that portion of the galaxy. I'm really looking forward to see, what he's going to bring to it. I loved him in Breaking Bad. And he just plays that, cultured guy who, seems like just a normal guy on the surface, but he's got that capacity for, doing so much evil. I think he's going to be a really compelling character. And certainly Gina Carano character is going to be fun to see. Given the fact that she's got that, the rebel ties. She's the former rebel shock trooper, but kind of seeing how she comes into the equation and teams up with the Mandalorian, and what kind of group that he puts together.
Yeah, Alex.
For the first episode, definitely. I mean, of course, Mandalorian. Getting a little taste of his backstory and his style. He's a fantastic character. I'm glad that the show was focused on him. But for characters, IG-11, I actually think that they might bring him back.
Yeah.
I got the impression that he just needed to be kind of reprogrammed, and then I think Mando could really use him in the future and in future battles and stuff like that. I hope they bring him back. I'm not going to be upset if they don't. Obviously, it's part of the story, but I think it'd be really cool if they did kind of do like a K2SO where it was like, they had K2 and Cassian. Now they got the Mando and IG-11 kind of teaming up together, because I love their back and forth. I love their that situational humor, like the Han and C-3PO type thing.
Do we still have people in chat?
4.
Okay, all I'm seeing all of a sudden is private, so sorry about that.
Yeah. But I just tweeted out. Hopefully more people will join us. But going forward, and I know people, I know they started, getting ready to do season 2, but you never know with Dave Filoni. You never know who's going to show up. And I'm really excited about that.
Now, did you guys see the leak from Pedro Pascal today with the name of his character?
No.
Oh.
Would you like to share with the class?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly spoilery, and who knows? This could be Filoni and Favreau messing with the fans. But he was doing an interview today and just kind of casually revealed that the Mandalorian's actual name is Din Djarin.
Din Djarin.
Dynjarren. So if that turns, I know there's a lot of people who were kind of thinking that maybe the Mando could be Boba Fett post Sarlacc pit. I didn't buy into that, but sounds like he's gonna be his own independent character. We're gonna kind of get to see him come into his own.
I really think it would have been a mistake to make him Boba Fett. I think Star Wars needs fresh. Star Wars needs new life, and I think this is the perfect avenue for it.
Yeah.
I think if it turns out to be Boba Fett, it's we just talked about fan service, but I think that might have been a little too much. I'm glad that this is a new situation, new characters, and I'm hoping for the best.
Yep, I agree. I think if they made it Boba Fett, a lot of the times fans contention for new Star Wars comes from messing with original characters and changing the way they are or changing something about them that they don't like. And I think the best thing to do is to kind of stay away from that. And I think after this episode 9, I think that's probably what they're going to do moving forward. I think they're going to be focusing on original characters, making their own canon, making their own stories. Obviously, besides Kenobi, which Kenobi, I have faith in was it Deborah Chow, I think, is directing that.
Yeah.
As long as they have a good writing team and Ewan McGregor's there to guide them in the way and to keep them focused, and who knows, maybe Jon Favreau will come in and help out, or Dave Filoni or somebody. I think that the team that's running the live television version of Star Wars is probably the best people to have doing it. So I have faith in them moving forward, and I'm looking forward to what they have in store for us.
I think it'll do fine. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. We all talked to Dominic Pace on our podcast, and he's a great guy, great character. I can't wait to see his character in action, Gecko in action, and I'm really rooting that we might see it on Friday. Right, Friday is the second episode, and I think it's So it looks like it's going to stay on Fridays, right?
Yeah, it looks like I think he was saying episode 3 is when he's going to have his hot shot. So I'm really hoping that pans out for him. Definitely a great guy. Has been super generous with his time, and I think it's really smart to kind of get out there through podcasts and connect to the fans that way, because you do get a lot of fans that are really dedicated to Star Wars who are listening to these podcasts. So certainly a smart play on his part, but he's been very generous, not just with his time, but certainly some of the items that he's put out there so that we can share those with our listeners as well.
Yeah, I just purchased that coin on eBay that he had.
Nice.
Real nice. He sent me a note and said I'll put in a couple of extra autographs for your giveaways, so that'll be really nice.
Nice.
So November 17th, live podcast. It's just going to be us three guys. I don't know if anybody else is coming.
That's
okay. I like talking with you. It's cool. Yoshi will be there. Yoshi will be. I'll really look forward to meeting Yoshi.
So everybody, the people that are left, November 17th here in Chicago, we are going to be going live again at Alley Cat Comics in Andersonville in Chicago. If you guys are locals, please give us a visit. The 501st will be there. WSCR, Galactic Public Media. Rob, Alex, Rowe, and a slew of other Star Wars scuttle buddies will be there to hang out and talk about The Mandalorian. We'll talk about Rise of Skywalker. We'll geek out on Star Wars news. And otherwise, we're going to have a really, really fantastic time. And we are very excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I've never been to Chicago before, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go get some pizza and have a drink with somebody from ILM. Like, that's mind blowing to me. That Yoshi would come and fly all the way to Chicago to see us, and to have the opportunity to sit down and talk to him and show our appreciation. I know that like you were talking about before, the people behind the scenes don't get nearly enough recognition for all the work that they put into making these movies look and feel the way they do. And I can't wait to buy that guy a drink and just say thanks. Now, just let me pick your brain and talk to me about all the cool Star Wars stuff that you've been doing.
Yeah, and talking about genuine, really nice guys. I mean, he's another one too, just like Dominic Pace. I mean, he's great to talk to. We've talked to him twice already. Him and his friend, his cohort, David, is just fantastic guys. And like Alex, I can't wait to have a drink with him. We'll all be there.
Yeah.
Rob, what you were going to say something? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I was just going to say, I mean, to the effect of the love that these guys have for what they do, that they slave away for hours and hours and hours creating this content. And like you said, I mean, they really don't get the recognition they deserve. And it's got to be incredibly frustrating to work on some of the amazing stuff they work on and not be able to talk about it to a lot of the people that they probably see on a day-to-day basis.
I wonder too, they both worked on The Rise of Skywalker, but they also worked on The Mandalorian. I want to also pick their brain and see which sequences they worked on from a VFX standpoint. Because again, being a gearhead, a tech guy behind the scenes, I'm really interested to see what, now that they can talk about it, I guess, really interested in seeing what they worked on.
I had posted something on Twitter to that effect, just saying it'll be fun to talk about it to whatever degree he can. I'm guessing that there's still going to be a lot he can't say, but if he turns out to be a real person, I'm still on the fence about that.
Thank you, Aaron, for that comment. He's going to be listening to the live podcast on November 17th while eating a hot dog, no ketchup, Chicago style. Thank you very much, Aaron. I didn't realize. I lived in Chicago all my life. I never realized the whole no ketchup thing until maybe in my, late 30s.
That's a thing?
That's a thing. Yeah. Yeah. Chicago dogs, no ketchup.
Yeah,
But
at least the
I
person
grew
that
up with ketchup on a hot dog. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, everybody. I thought everybody did.
No, not here.
And you got to come back. You got to go back to Chicago in the summertime too. You're coming.
Yeah.
You're coming
Actually,
at the time of year where the wind's going to cut right through whatever you're wearing.
I'll tell you what, man. I've had just about enough summertime to last me a lifetime. I live in Vegas. It's like 120 degrees here for like 9 months. I'm good. I'm good with some cold. Give me some freezing cold weather. I'm ready for it.
Like 30 to 40 degrees of that our way, and we'll be good. Both days.
Let's I want to do a quick little recap. I really want to pick your guys' brains about okay, spoiler. For anybody that's still watching, spoiler, I'm going to talk. Really want to pick your guys' brain about Baby Yoda. Is it really Baby Yoda, or is it someone else? Although, you know, somebody had picked out that little mole that Yoda has, and the baby had it too. So it's really looking like, you know, it's either a clone or world between worlds. He kind of was yanked out from infancy or what, or 50-year-old baby. I mean, what's going on here?
I was against it when you first told me about it. I was like, "No way, get out of here! They're not going to do that. It's another It's another one of his species. And then the pieces started putting together. Rob, you shared that picture of the guy's uniform with the Camino patch on it, and then you showed me the picture with the mole, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, geez, maybe it is. Holy cow! Like I'm not 100% convinced, but as of right now, it probably wouldn't survive me because there's some solid evidence to support that theory.
Yeah.
It could just as easily be they're putting stuff out there to screw with their heads too.
Yeah, this baby, he might give this baby away, and then that could be the end of the whole story.
Right. He can't handle the idea of another 20 years of changing diapers, and hands it off to Gina Carano, and he's done.
You know, one of the things that I was talking to somebody on Twitter regarding that. I think Star Wars, was it Star Wars in Class or Friends of the Force? The other Brad. I think they were asking, like, why would those Imperials want this baby back or dead even? And I kind of posted, I said, so there won't be another awakening. And I did it in quotes, obviously, to avoid spoilers. But, you know, for what reason would they? So is this something that, because the Empire wasn't around when this baby was born or cloned. So it's almost like inherited technology based on the time frame. You know, pre-episode 1, there was no Empire. So, you know, obviously Camino, you know, is introduced into this plot line because of the uniform and the patch. You know, there's other technology that the Empire has either inherited or developed, like, you know, light speed tracking, as we saw Jyn Erso. I want to go back to Rogue One and kind of read some of the things that Jyn Erso was saying when she was listing out all the files that she was, you know, looking through to find the plans for the Death Star. You know, Stardust, Thrawn's TIE fighters were in there, I think. Is there something that we're not catching that might give us a clue here? Obviously, because, you know, the Empire knew about it, because now, you know, these guys are looking for Baby Yoda. So, you know, cloning technology is out there for the Empire, but it's very intriguing.
Well, we know, I mean, again, go back to Expanded Universe. Clearly, you know, they didn't have any issues with cloning even Force-sensitive users or Force-sensitive individuals. And, you know, they've dealt with it even in canon, right? You've got all of the clone troopers that have been cloned. I know there's, as we talked about earlier, there's the talk of Rey potentially being a clone. It seems to be kind of a hot button item for them right now. I just hope they don't overly complicate the storyline for season 1. I feel like this is something a lot like the original Star Wars film, where it's setting up the world, and then the remainder of the seasons they'll be able to play in it a little bit more. So I think, you know, throwing in a child of Yoda species is an interesting twist, but I hope they're not going to pull in world between worlds or things like that are going to be maybe a bridge too far for people who aren't really hardcore into some of the animated series.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if they did. Obviously Dave Filoni is the one that wrote those episodes and that storyline, and I wouldn't mind, taking a deep dive into some of that, some of those stories. Again, going back to my comment that I'm glad that it seems like this series is going to really, tailor to the hardcores.
Yeah.
I don't think this might be kind of harsh, but I don't think Star Wars works, especially now after we've gotten so many years of content. I don't think Star Wars is going to work watered down or spoon-fed to the audience. I think Star Wars obviously has been around for decades, and it's a story, it's a galaxy that is so vast that you can't explain everything like in one particular movie or one particular story. So there's things that affect other things that are part of the lore. And I think it's great that Dave Filoni is kind of pushing that envelope a little, especially because of what we saw at the end of episode 1.
That one's for Alex.
Oh, for me.
First, I want to say Frank and Amy are here. It might be both of them, but I'm glad that they are here. Hello to both of you. Amy, I hope you are doing well. And Frank, I hope you're doing well too. But thank you for joining us. So, Alex, yeah.
What were we talking about?
We're talking about, Star Wars being watered down for the casual fans. And again, Star Wars is for everyone. But I just wanted to kind of reiterate that I personally like the fact, I was very happy when Darth Maul showed up in the Solo film. I'm like, whoa, wow, that is like really gutsy. A lot of people around me were like, what's going on? What? I thought he was dead. But I think it's really great that they have the guts to kind of go in that direction.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, I didn't get the feeling like the Mandalorian was trying to spoon feed anybody. It was very much like, the people who are watching this know what's up, and they just kind of went into it. And if it intrigues you, who as a fan who maybe doesn't know every little detail, you can go back and look it up, and that's kind of a cool way to get involved in the show and to understand it better. I do agree. I do think that they should not be afraid of exploring some deeper meanings behind the Force, and however, I will say this: The Mandalorian might not be the show to do it. They're not focusing on Jedi, Sith, Force users. This is very much Mandalorian, bounty hunter, underworld type stuff, and I think it needs to stay there. If they want to explore kind of like the Force and the mythical lore behind Star Wars, I think that would be a better job for the Kenobi series. Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to go through training with hopefully I really hope we see Liam Neeson come back as Qui-Gon Jinn as a Force ghost, teaching Kenobi the ways, and him communicating with Yoda from Dagobah while he's on Tatooine. I think if they're going to explore the Force and what can be done with the Force, it needs to be done in a TV show that's centered around a character who is a master of it, instead of just kind of shoehorning it in with a bounty hunter.
I can see your point. I can see that, and it probably would benefit, a show like Obi-Wan Kenobi to kind of explore that. It's almost like we're getting that Star Wars Underworld show again, the one that was canceled, and then obviously the 1313 game. I think that we're going to get a little bit. I'm always fascinated about Star Wars and the Underworld. We saw a little bit of it in Solo, with the crime lords, the crime bosses. I just think that stuff really adds color to the story of Star Wars and everything that's happening around the Star Wars that we know. I, for one, love it. I think it's gonna be good.
Well, and that's a great thing about what they're doing right now is that, at least with the Disney Plus content, you've got multiple series, but none of them are really going to be the same flavor of Star Wars, right? We got the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. We're going to get something that's maybe a little bit more familiar to us, especially as original trilogy fans. And then you've got the Cassian Andor series where it's going to be more the spycraft. And I feel like that's going to be, the darker, grittier side. And in an angle on Star Wars that we really haven't seen much of. And then the Mandalorian, same type of thing, right? You've got this super popular character in Boba Fett from the original trilogy that we're not exploring his story, but we're getting a flavor of that with this Mandalorian character. And I do agree. There was a comment in the chat a little while ago where they were talking about it. It does seem to be focused more on the spaghetti Western style that Favreau's really going for. I believe it was Andrew that had put it in there. So I don't think that he's trying to recreate original trilogy Star Wars, but he's kind of doing his own riff on the inspiration, the Kurosawa films, the spaghetti Westerns of Leone. So it's working for me, even though it's not quote unquote the Star Wars I'm familiar with. It has components of what I look for in a Star Wars film or series in this case.
Yeah, definitely. Frank and Amy had a question, which is it's a good one. Was curious why IG-11 had a contract to kill and the Mandalorian was a kill or capture. Was there 2 contracts on the same asset, or what was the deal? And that actually brings out a good observation. Thank you guys for that. So 2 contracts on the same asset. Someone other than the guild put out the same contract. Could that be, another? I guess it could be another like crime lord or another bounty hunter guild. Dominic Pace even said so that there are many guilds in the bounty hunter, as far as bounty hunters. And Carl Weathers' character said they don't want to pay guild prices. They're okay going with other bounty hunters. So great observation there, Frank and Amy. What do you guys think of that?
I could totally see that being something that was put into motion by that character that Giancarlo Esposito is going to be playing. If he is kind of at cross purposes to the Werner Herzog character.
I'm gonna go a different way. I think the character that gave him the contract, it's obvious that this has been happening for a while. By Nick Nolte's character had said that bounty hunters have been coming here for a long time, each trying to get the same asset and each dying, and there's always wars and battles and people are trying to get to this person a lot. So this is not the first contract that's been put out on this little baby. And my impression was that it was the same contract, just 2 bounty hunters going for the same job. And I think the difference between the kill order versus the live order is, if you remember, the Mandalorian showed up and that doctor kind of stumbled out. He wasn't supposed to be there. Everybody was kind of like, what did he say? His enthusiasm outweighs his I don't remember what the line was, but he wasn't supposed to be there. So he was the one who wanted it alive. Right. If you remember, the original contract was to kill the asset
and then just bring him in.
But the doctor came in and said, no, we want him alive if possible. So that was the difference. And I think the droid probably didn't run into that doctor. He just got the contract and walked out and was like, okay, I have a job to go kill this creature. Let's go do it. Whereas the Mandalorian had that interaction with the doctor. And then, of course, he's, as being a human being, he had that empathy when he saw the creature was a baby. So that was my take on it. But I'm open to having, different people. But again, I feel like that might overcomplicate things. Like you were talking about, you want the story to be as simple as possible and straight to the point so that it doesn't get kind of mucked up. I think if you're having like multiple guilds and all this stuff come in, it might get a little muddy. So that's just my take.
Mucking up a contract is a very...
I was just going to try to bait Ro into this impression again. So clearly he's already there. I do agree with Framey's comment. I'm just going to go with Framey here in chat that, IG-11 did say that it was specific, that it was terminate, but hashtag blocked for having a different opinion, and we'll move on.
Yeah, don't muck up the contracts.
Right.
Yeah, so that's, I think that's pretty cool. I think, there's definitely a lot there in episode 1 and chapter 1 to kind of wet our whistle, especially when it comes to the mechanics of the guild, the mechanics of these bounty hunters. Obviously, we know that Gecko is also a bounty hunter, and we'll see him in action, soon. So I'm happy that this is out, and I can't wait for Friday to see what happens next.
Agreed.
Absolutely. I think this is well worthy of the Star Wars name. And I can't see why anybody would be upset at this show. I think it's a step in the right direction for this franchise for sure.
I think we're all waiting to see how they evacuate their thoraxes in this series as well, right? We've certainly heard enough about that.
That's our first official canon bathroom in Star Wars.
I know, that's actually a great point. And again, I want to get one of these personal carbon freeze units.
How cool is that?
Yeah, that was great.
Evacuating your thorax is a complicated profession.
Wouldn't you agree?
Wouldn't you agree? Somebody said that his every answer at the end, he's just going to ask everybody, "Don't you agree? Wouldn't you agree?" But yeah, these are great characters. Very gruff, very very similar to Rogue One, where you got that gritty feel, you got that grit, the gray. The rebellion wasn't white as the rebellion of the original trilogy. So I think we needed a little of that just to kind of mix things up, and I love it.
Now, just a quick aside, did you guys see the speculation that Boba Fett was actually present in the Mandalorian enclave when he was going down to get his pauldron?
I would have to. I mean, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'll have to find the picture and post it on Twitter. But it was a very distinctive helmet, and definitely the same color pattern. But again, it's one of those things where it could easily be potentially another member of the same clan. It was the person who posted the photo initially had pointed out that there was even the same dent in the same place on that helmet. So
I was going to say that's the key, is it doesn't have the bullet hole dent on the top.
Yeah.
But I think we have to. I think we have to tell everybody to stop with the Boba Fett, because Boba Fett was not a Mandalorian.
Exactly.
This is true. Yep.
I mean, he just had the Mando outfit, and and again, I don't know if George Lucas did that because Boba Fett is a really popular character, so I'm going to have Jango Fett in the prequel trilogy so I can sell more toys. I don't want to sound cynical, but but yeah, I mean, Jango Fett was not a Mandalorian. Boba Fett was not a Mandalorian. So let's give it a rest.
Yep. I mean, it was interesting that they had that photo. There was a pretty clear screen cap. It was incredibly similar armor, and that dent was in the same spot. Again, sometimes I think they just throw stuff like that in because they know everyone is overanalyzing every scene.
Yeah. It's probably just the Easter egg.
Right.
Talking about Easter eggs, I really appreciated the one line from Nick Nolte's character where he was like, "Your ancestors have ridden these beasts in the past, but you can't read this blorg." And that, I guess, apparently that is a callback to the Christmas special where we get introduced to Boba Fett for the first time. That big dinosaur that he's riding. I thought that was a super cool little line to put in there.
Well, Jon Favreau loves the holiday special. He's been on interviews and he wants to kind of read. And obviously there was the reference of Life Day.
So and that Ambien phase pulse blaster that the Mandalorian carries, that exact same one from the Star Wars holiday special cartoon with Boba Fett. So a lot of cool callbacks. Yep.
Yeah. So this is a great series shaping up. Frank and Amy said we have no idea what's coming Friday.
Yeah.
Friday is going to be, we've had a lot of trailers drop for The Rise of Skywalker and the movies beforehand. We've had these trailers for The Mandalorian, but this is new territory for us. We don't know what's going to happen. You got a little visitor there, huh, Alex?
Yeah, Alex doesn't even know what's going to happen. Things are happening all over the place.
All over the place.
Yeah,
I got the whole crew out here now.
Yeah, that's fine. Isn't it past their bedtime?
Yeah.
It is their bedtime right now. I got to go.
You've got a 50-year-old that just snuck into the frame there.
Yeah, right? Oh, God.
Yeah. That'd be funny. But, so, Friday we'll get to see Chapter 2 of The Mandalorian. I can't wait. Very exciting. I want to do a quick thank you very much to our Grand Moff Tier patron 97 Bravo. Thank you very much. Just wanted to give you a shout out. 97 Bravo, checking our 6. Thank you very much for your contribution to the channel. We really, really appreciate it. And our other patrons, we have Brad, who's a patron of the channel, and Charlie Skywalker, who was here earlier. Who else we got? Chad, Holocrons, Hyperspace and Holocrons, and Drunk 3PO. He is a patron of the channel. Thank you very much for your support. Yeah, that, I think that does it. Unless you guys, unless I missed something, there was no post-credit scene, was there? Nothing like that.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Stick around and check it out.
There was a really cool,
watch again.
Really cool concept art for the ending credits.
I loved it. Yeah, those were really cool. I hope they release, the art of the Mandalorian, because I really, really want to see a lot of that concept art. And I know Phil Stozak, is that right? From ILM, Lucasfilm. He releases a lot of concept art and stuff like that, and I follow him on the Twitterverse there. So I get to see a lot of that stuff. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, Scuttle Buddies, thank you very much for joining us on our live Mandalorian preview. We had a lot of fun with Rob and Alex. Rob, thank you very much for joining us.
No, always my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on.
And we're going to see each other in a couple of days. This is too wild. November 17th, Chicago. Live podcast with Yoshi, the 501st. Alex is going to be there. Who else is going to be there? Followers.
Everybody in chat, right?
Hopefully a lot of people.
Yeah. Aaron, thank you very much. Have a good night. Frank and Amy, please get some rest so you can heal from what you're going through. Thank you so much. Shannon, I think she's gone, but Shannon, thank you very much for joining us. Guys, that will do it. I hope you enjoyed our live review of The Mandalorian Chapter 1. And we'll do it again next. I think we'll do it again next week. Friday is the release of Chapter 2. We're gonna take a little break because we have a big show to prepare live on Sunday, and then we'll do another chapter review as soon as we recover from our live show here in Chicago.
As soon as I thaw out.
Yeah.
Oh, you have no idea.
Excellent. All right, guys. May the force be with you. Alex, what do you say?
I have spoken. Oh, that's the scuttlebutt.
Scuttlebutting is a complicated profession.
There it is.
Wouldn't you agree? Thank you, guys.